tracking issues when one day I was driving home from work from LA, and Bob was down in town in Ojai. And we were both away from the house, and I got a call on my drive home that a fire was starting near the house and I should get back. And as you know with fires, you're like, oh, okay, well, sometimes that happens in California, no big deal, right? It doesn't seem to be working. So we started home to see what was going on, and because of 85-mile-an-hour winds, and us living within 2 miles of the epicenter of the Thomas Fire, within 20 minutes, and the time that we could get there, they had already closed the access for us to get back up to our home because the fire was raging too fast and too hot to allow anybody in. We had our pets up there, a house full of pets, and we're just devastated. And we went up to the roadblock and got a tip from a friend that if you owned horses, because horses are a money-making thing, that they would let some people up to get their horses. So I went up and lied and said I had horses. And having had them before, luckily I was able to throw a couple of key words around, and they let us drive up. Bob and I were the only people up there, besides the fire department. And it was amazing. It was Dante's Inferno up there. And we managed to just get in as the last and only car there, grab our pets in the dark, get them in the car, and get back in our car and start moving as the fire department was behind us going, go, 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 go. And one of my slides, oh yeah, there we go. Yeah, I can do that. So this is what it looked like in downtown Ojai that day. Wow. As we tried to get up to the roadblock. And this is what we saw when we got up there. So at the time the Thomas Fire happened, it was the hottest, the fastest, and the largest in all of California to date. Within 1 year, just 1 year, it happened in December of 2017. By December of 2018, 2 other fires, the Mendocino Fire and the Paradise Fire, had superseded it in speed, in distance, in heat, in every single element. And from the time we grabbed our things, Bob and I spent eight long weeks on the road. And we were one of the lucky ones. We had insurance. That sort of thing will not help you. If your home is not there, you still have to become a climate refugee, and that's what we were. And that's how we got back here. And in the movie that you're about to see, you're also going to hear another person who we know who was in the Thomas Fire, and we'll talk about that experience as well. So it was pretty devastating, but it was also galvanizing, because when we got here, we realized that this was so related to climate change, and that because we were lucky with all that we had, how bad this is for other people who didn't have insurance, who didn't have the resources, the friends that we had. So we got very involved, and the first thing that we encountered was a training given by Extinction Rebellion in Los Angeles. And so we went to that, and we finally saw such amazing activism that involves, love and peace and music and art, a new way of doing things, and to gain the attention of our leaders. So I'll talk a little bit more about Extinction Rebellion a little later on. But I just want to talk real briefly about climate change itself, because there just isn't enough time. There's so many elements that happen as a part of climate change that factor in, that need to be addressed, that are possible solutions, that the factors that come into this are so huge that it can't be covered in less than an hour or two at best. So all I can do is just tell a little bit about climate change itself and what's going on. I want to talk about local effects and what's happening here in the Coachella Valley. And then I want to talk about activism in the Coachella Valley and what can be done. So here we see that we are at the highest point we've been in the last 800,000 years in terms of carbon. And you see that now, at the very end, where we are now. And you've heard people say that it's just natural, and along the way, CO2 has gone up and down. And so over the last 800,000 years, you can see how it has just a little bit. But then in that last line, look to the very top of the chart, and that's where we are now. We're at about 407 parts per million. The Organization 350.org that you've probably heard of was created back in 2007 because at that point, 350 parts per million was as much as they could imagine our environment holding without ecological collapse. So we have surpassed that by quite a bit now, and we're dealing with having to adjust to all the changes that are happening and going to happen in relation to that. So the IPCC is the government body part of the UN that's in charge of doing the science on climate change. And their statement was that we must keep to 1.5 Celsius of warming, and they also conversely said that's not safe. At this point, we are at about 1.2. So UN emissions report, world on course for more than 3 degree spike, not 1.5, 3, even if climate commitments are met. NASA satellites reveal the world's thickest glacier is melting 80 years ahead of schedule due to record high temperatures. So as you watch the film, which was made in 2017, every year the projections go up. The climate models are surpassed. Every time we think we know the numbers and we think we know how long we have until they get more catastrophic, everything that's happening in actuality is outpacing the models. So in the movie, when you hear them talk about what has to be done by the end of the century, think 2050. And when you hear them talk about things that have to be done by 2050, think 2030. And that's how far we've jumped. Indonesia has moved its capital out of Jakarta. This is the biggest example I know of sea level rise that is already impacting hugely. An entire country has to move its capital already. 11,000 scientists warn of untold suffering. And boy, when 11,000 scientists sign a petition saying they're scared, it's really worrisome. So, what's happening here? So, California did a fourth climate change assessment that they're done every couple of years, and what's going on here locally with our own climate that's of concern. My information comes from both this climate assessment and a special that was done by Mike Everett, who's a weatherman locally on KMIR. He did a 2-day interview and assessment of talking to the scientists locally about what's really going on. And there were several alarming things that came up there. The first was that we can expect in the next few years to have double the number of days at 115 degrees or more. And so the heat is going to get more extended, and the top temperatures are going to get higher. We'll see the 120s more often as well. He spoke with a doctor from Desert Regional who said very alarmingly that there is a point at which, a temperature at which your body can no longer regulate its own heat. That no matter how much water you drink, you can collapse. So it goes beyond our body's ability to deal if we're out in that heat. And so in the days ahead, when there's so much more heat that's more severe and for so long, then we're going to have to look at things like doing work that goes on during the day at night. We're going to have to move everything indoors that's possible to move indoors. So these things will start happening over the next couple of years. Our bird population is one of the saddest things. UC Berkeley did a study just several years ago about the Mojave Desert and found that 29% of our birds were missing. So we're down about a third of the birds that we should expect. There's a member of our group that recently did a bird count in Joshua Tree and was absolutely shocked because she does this every year when it's done, and how much the bird population has declined just in the last several years. In talking about the Salton Sea, which is one of the largest ecological problems going on here, there was an interview on TV not too long ago with the gentleman who is charged with taking care of the birds and nature at the Salton Sea. And he talked about the fact that 75% of the birds who migrate north to south come across the Salton Sea area and encounter the Salton Sea. And one of the problems is, last year he said, yeah, well, we had an outbreak of bird cholera. I thought, bird cholera, really? Bird cholera. Yeah, it's a real thing. And he said that birds were drinking water from the Salton Sea, and they were getting bird cholera, and he was taking nets and dragging their bodies out of the water. And these are the things that we don't know about, we don't see, we don't hear about, that are going on in the valley. The asthma rates, of course, are huge due to the Salton Sea. This is a Salton Sea child. And that's because, of course, the Salton Sea has years of agricultural runoff into the water that's affected it. In addition, military bases have dropped all kinds of waste down to the bottom, including uranium. And those things are surfacing now that the water is going down deeper. And we're beginning to smell it. We can smell it from here on some days. Everything that's waving this way. And so the asthma rates that we see now out at Salton Sea, we'll be seeing more locally. So this is Imperial County's asthma rate for children versus all of California. So what do we do? What are we going to do about this? So when this lady, who is Chenoweth, she was from Harvard University. She's a public policy professor there. And she did a study of movements and successful rates among movements and what works and what doesn't. What she found, one of the many interesting things that she found, is that in most movements that succeeded in their aims, it really only took 3.5% of society being behind that and taking direct action in order to effect the change that was being sought. She found that non-direct violent action, non-violent direct action, was the most effective way to bring about change, and that it exceeded protests, signs, advocacy sort of consisting of letters and to senators and that kind of advocacy, but it really only takes 3.5%. So that's about 7,000 people, right? In the valley, I think you calculated, Bob?
Yeah.
Yeah. So we can do that. This is who needs to be involved, directly involved, in order to achieve change on this. So we've gotten to the point where there's such a recognition that some of the old tactics aren't working, and that we need to go further in what we're doing to wake up our leaders to the fact that we need a World War II style mobilization of resources to achieve change and climate change, to really factor in all of the things that we need to fight. And they are many. There's so many things that I'm not talking about tonight that I thought that I'd give you a list just to get the feel of how huge this issue is. We usually hear about one item at a time in the news, one thing that we have to think about. So these are some of the things that I talk about in a talk that I give regularly. There are two more dates coming up that if you stop by our table, we'll probably give you a flyer to learn more. So these are some of the things to keep in mind. We have the Paris Agreement, sea level rise, biodiversity loss, species extinction, cattle farming and meat-based diet, Arctic and Antarctic ice melt, extreme weather events, pollinator extinction, loss of cloud banks, climate justice disproportionately affecting communities of color and low income, renewable energy, food scarcity, climate refugees, climate lag, which means that we're always 20 years behind. Whatever we're doing now, we're 10 to 20 years behind. Tipping points, CO2 emissions by country, hottest and fastest warming spots, wildfire feedback loops, glacier melt feedback loops, permafrost and methane, average human footprint and individual actions that work, family planning, food waste, refrigerant management, reforestation, garment and textiles industry, electric cars in the transportation industry, and plastics and petrochemicals. So you can see when you hear all at once how overwhelming it feels. But really, these all just take the will of our leaders to take this on and to assist these things in happening. And we've done things similar before, maybe not on this scale, but let's think back to when we had a hole in the ozone layer that made the news all the time because it was the size of North America at one point. And it was a doomsday scenario. And by working with the natural chemicals involved in the accelerants and eliminating them. Our hairspray now goes spritz instead of whoosh, right? It wasn't the most horrible thing. And now they anticipate the ozone layer to close up by 2070. So these things can be done. If anybody lived in Los Angeles in the 70s, you can remember that you couldn't see your hand in front of your face. And because of regulations on car exhaust, we now can kind of see our hands in front of our faces. So this really just takes will and action. And the overwhelm sometimes stops our leaders from doing it. It's so much easier to walk through every day, just as we do individually sometimes. There are mortgages, there are deadlines, there are things that are going on. And it's hard to keep all of this in mind while we're going through this. But here we have a former UN climate chief calling for civil disobedience because she says this is so serious and so immediate that we need to try new tactics and we need to get this message out. So one of the other things that Chenoweth found was that the actions that succeeded needed to be respectful. And nonviolent direct action is respectful at all times. There is an action that we did at the CNN building in Los Angeles, we being Extinction Rebellion. And it was so respectful, and I was so impressed. It was the first action I'd taken part in LA. And when we were talking to the folks in the CNN building, as we're standing in front of it on a megaphone after all kinds of art and spoken word and things were going on, and everybody around was going, what's going on? And coming out of their cars and off in the streets to see. And we first thanked them. We thanked them for having the first climate change debate among the Democratic contenders and for hosting that. That was great. And we said, and there's some other things we'd like for you to work on. And would you work with us on these, please? And we did. We got some action on that. So respectful is extremely important. Actions must be disruptive. They have to take people out of their day-to-day, out of that walking one step in front of the other thing. And that includes our leaders and the people who would be involved in this. So it has to be something that gets attention so that everybody's waking from the sleep that we're in about this. And in time, we have to act now. So there are a number of local groups who are doing a lot about this. We're all different. We all have a different space within this fight because this fight is so big. And so I want you to know that wherever you fall in what you feel like you can do, there's a group that is exactly right for you. And the Climate Crisis Committee, Courageous Resistance of the Desert, is great. Bob heads that committee. The Salt and Sea Coalition, we have a star here from that coalition, Felice, sitting in our audience. Climate Reality Project Palm Springs is just starting here. The Sierra Club, San Gorgonio, Greenpeace, Coachella Valley, Friends of the Desert Mountains, of course, the Palm Springs Sustainability Commission, and the Certified Farmers Markets of the Coachella Valley, and us at Extinction Rebellion. So all of us occupies a space and a way of going about things that's important. So from this moment, despair ends and tactics begin. This was an art piece that was done in the middle of the night secretly by Banksy to support Extinction Rebellion. So Extinction Rebellion is an international movement that started in October of 2018 in London, England. And the group there called Rise Up did an action where they confronted the Parliament about their inaction on climate change. And they drew so many people that the group was founded there. Extinction Rebellion was founded there. And so they closed down 4 bridges in London and demanded that the inaction on climate change stop and that there be a discussion between people and scientists and leaders there about how to move forward and how to change things. That one was highly successful, and then in April, everybody came. Suddenly the April event that happened in London filled the streets. And over 1,000 people were arrested. And although there are arrests in Extinction Rebellion, it's not a common thing, we don't try to do that. And for everybody who risks arrest with any movement, there are 6 people needed for support in other roles. So this is where the movement really began and where it grew wings. And right now there are 500 Extinction Rebellion groups in 70 countries, and we're glad to be the local affiliate for that. So they actually got Parliament to listen, and they declared a national climate emergency. And from that, they got a lot of action, a lot of places in power at the tables where these things are decided and things move forward. So here's some local things that we did. This was the CNN action that we were talking about. We frequently, as a local group that started just 6 months ago here in the Coachella Valley, we often feel that lending our voices to the larger Los Angeles movements can be our best bet for the moment. We're hoping to address climate change issues that are more local to us in the days ahead, but we need your help for that. So here we are at the CNN building, and talking to them. The police could not have been better. Everything was very organized, and art and music filled the day, and everybody was interested in what was going on, and we educated a lot of people that day. This, you can see me on the right holding a Beyond Politics sign, because climate change, we believe, is beyond politics. No matter who you are, you're going to be affected by it. If you're low income, if you're poor, if you are a minority, you may be disproportionately affected by it. But it's going to come for everybody if we can't have an effect on it. So there we are on the steps of the Chase building in Hollywood. And the action that we did there was because Chase is the largest funder of fossil fuel and fracking projects in the world by far. So this was part of an international movement confronting Chase about that. And while we were there that day, people who were walking by came in and cut up their Chase cards and got on stage to talk about doing that. Well, yeah, it was an amazing moment. And then we just heard 2 days ago, you probably have heard in the news, that Chase has decided to cut down their funding on fossil fuel projects and to invest $2 billion, I believe it is. It's either $2 billion or $12 billion in renewable energy. So the pressure worked. These things worked. This is part of the action. There was a die-in that happened in front of Chase. These women here are called the Red Ripple Brigade, and they represent the peace and love that we put into what we do. We're not angry, we're not confrontational, we do not yell, we don't do anything physically, not anything. So what we're trying to do is wake everybody up. And the women, if you see them live with the kabuki makeup moving through, they hold the peace and the quiet of the seriousness of what's going on.
We're heading down this road, and before long, it's going to be uncontrollable. It's going to be too late.
Writing letters, going on short demonstrations, nothing ever gets done. So we're now upping it by sitting down, stopping traffic, and I think the awareness is getting raised that we need to do more and more.
It starts with love. This whole movement is about loving the planet genuinely, and that is what pushes us to act.
Just us being here, we are doing things, we are shouting, we are getting our voices heard, we're telling people the truth, and it just doesn't get better than that, guys.
Ready or not, here I come, you can't hide. Gonna find you and take it slowly. Ready or not, here I come, you can't hide. Gonna find you and take it slowly. Ready or not, here I come, you can't hide. Gonna find you and take it slowly. Ready or not, here I come, you can't hide. Gonna find you and take it slowly. Ready or not, ready or not, ready or not, ready or not, here I come, here I come, here I come, here I come. Ready or not, ready or not, ready or not, ready or not, ready or not.
end an empire. Your thoughts are a blaze no man can touch, and like moths to them we turn. Your bones, they are steel, and your eyes, they do burn. But can see that smile that eclipses in a different sun and can spark this city into something almighty. If only we could see, not kindling, waiting for a flame, you and me. We are all made of fire.